Bulabinaka, my name is Litia and I'm from the beautiful island of Laos and I love listening to Today FM. Today FM rocks.
My name is Casey, I'm from Tabua. We love Today FM in Tabua. Today FM rocks.
My name is Selena, I'm from Tawenga Vengamba. I love listening to Today FM. Today FM rocks.
Bula, my name is Carlo. I love listening to the music in Today FM, in Malak Island. Today FM rock.
Today's hit music on Today FM.
In the news tonight, floodwaters force major disturbance in Lambasa. Disturbance to intensify further. And cleanup continues in the Western Division.
From the studios of FBC Suva, Jackie Spate.
Heavy rain from last night to early this morning caused major flooding in and around Lambasa today. Eleanor Turangaivu reports the floodwaters forced schools and most businesses in Lambasa to close down for the day.
This is what most people in Lambasa woke up to this morning. Flooding, which many say happened so fast.
Yeah, the river is just about a few meters away behind us. Yeah, and water coming down the slope. And together with the high tide coming up. Yeah, so it just happened so suddenly, just within 30 minutes.
All areas close to and near the Ngawa River and the Lambasa River were flooded from early this morning. These include the Batunimbale Flats, the Soso Flats, the Bulovi area, Mbasonga, Wuniika, Mvunimoli, Batinikama, Bombale, Mbulileka, Reketi Leilai, the Wailevu area and the Korotari area.
Well, it started raining for the past 2 weeks gradually, and it came up yesterday. From 11 midnight, it came so severely that it has caused this much flooding.
All schools in Lambasa were closed today. This is at the All Saints Secondary School, just a few minutes outside of Lambasa town. It's the same story as well at Sri Guru Nanak Primary School, as well as Khalsa College, where waters have entered the classrooms. Some are being used as evacuation centers. Around 10 a.m., the flood waters were still around, but it had receded in some areas. Commissioner Northern Chovesa Bodea is urging the public to continue to be on alert as the flood warning still remains for the low-lying areas and streams adjacent to the Ngawa and Lambasa rivers.
The current weather pattern is aiming that another low pressure coming over to the group and targeting the Northern Division over the weekend. So my message to them is to take heed of the instructions, the advisories. Please, if you feel unsafe in the places you are in, move to higher grounds.
While water and electricity is out in some parts of Lambasa, the Northern Emergency Operations Center is monitoring the situation on the ground. Eleanor Turangaivu, FBC News.
About 400 people are now sheltering in 9 evacuation centers in the Northern Division following the floods early this morning. There are 6 evacuation centers in the Lambasa area and 1 in Savu-Savu. Eleanor Turangaivu again with this report.
At 3 this morning, the rising flood waters forced 30 families from this housing at Naundamu in Lambasa to evacuate from their homes and take shelter at the nearby Sri Guru Nanak Primary School, the first of the 7 evacuation centers to open.
Some of us packed last night. Floodwaters came about 3 a.m. near the steps. We were prepared. It's just lucky that it only rained for a little while. If it had rained continuously, Naundamu would be underwater.
Other areas around Lambasa also started getting flooded by sunlight, and the Northern Emergency Operations Center was forced to open 5 more evacuation centers in Lambasa alone to cater for the families whose homes have been affected or were at risk.
Last night we fell asleep, and when we came outside at 3 a.m. our compound was dry. I got a shock. My father-in-law told me that floodwaters was near the steps. That's when police officers came and told us to evacuate.
Commissioner Northern Chovesa Bodea is urging those living in low-lying areas to move to the evacuation center that is nearest to them.
This morning, the evacuation took place at 3 a.m. Even though the advisories were going from the last few days for them to safer grounds, move to safer grounds, but maybe they were a bit complacent where they are, but that is the situation right now.
The Commissioner Northern is urging those in the evacuation centres not to vandalise or abuse the properties. Police officers have been stationed at the evacuation centres for the safety and security of the evacuees. Eleanor Turangibu, FBC News.
And Eleanor now joins us from the North Emergency Operations Centre in Lambasa, where a press briefing with the Commissioner Northern, Chovesa Vodea, regarding the situation in Vanua Levu at the moment has just ended. Eleanor, what's the latest?
Good evening, Jackie. Here at the North Emergency Operations Centre, there is a team that is monitoring the situation here, both on the ground as well as the weather. And leading the operation is the Commissioner Northern, Chovesa Vodea, as you've mentioned, who is here with me, and he will have the latest of what's happening here in Lambasa. And just firstly, sir, what can the people of the Northern Division expect in terms of the weather from tonight, tomorrow, and heading into the weekend?
Vinaka, as we are talking right now, it's raining heavily outside, and this was the same kind of weather that we had last night when we had flooding, flash flooding. And please, the people of the Northern Division, we expect this kind of weather to continue over the next few days and over the weekend. So please take heed of all the instructions and the advices that you are getting from the media or from government or whatever. And please, this is very important for you. Make sure that you take heed of all these very important instructions.
And I also understand that parents will also be eager to know if there will be classes or school tomorrow for their children.
Well, for Lambasa area, because most of the evacuation centers are being used as schools, the government has already made a statement this afternoon that there will be no all the schools in Lambasa area closed again for tomorrow.
And while they are at home today, one thing that we've noticed was the amount of children that were out swimming in the floodwaters. Your advice to them this evening?
You rightly said that. We have discussed that with the disciplinary forces, the police. They'll be also going around tomorrow, monitoring the situation and advising those children who are not at school tomorrow to not to litter around in town and not to play in the floodwaters.
And just lastly, as we've heard earlier, there's about 9 evacuation centers that are open with about 400 evacuees that are sheltering in these evacuation centers. Your advice to the evacuees who are in the evacuation centers as of this evening?
Yes, to all the evacuees, please observe the rules and the policies of the evacuation centers, since most of them school facilities. The police will be around. The securities will be around. Please make sure that behave yourself whilst you are in the evacuation centers. And we don't entertain any form of like drinking of grog and other social programs to be undertaken in the evacuation centers. Please remain focused on the weather situation and observe the rules of the evacuation centers that you are being habilitated yet.
And thank you. That's it, Jackie. That's the latest from us here in Lambasa.
Thanks so much for that update, Eleanor. A low-pressure system that developed to the west of Fiji has intensified to a tropical disturbance, TD13F. It's expected to intensify into a tropical depression by Sunday and possibly intensify further into a Category 1 cyclone as it moves towards the group. The Fiji Meteorology Service is expected to take a similar track as TC Josie that will pass southwest of the group early next week. It's likely the system will be stronger than TC Josie, and if it tracks more closer to the land areas, then the impact can be worse.
As the system moves closer to the group, expect strong winds to damaging gale force winds with frequent heavy rain. With more rain forecasted and soil being saturated, there is high risk of severe river flooding, especially in the Western Division. The system has the potential to produce more than 120 millimeters of rainfall in 24 hours this weekend.
A majority of the farms in Ba have suffered significant damage by the widespread flooding brought by TC Josie over the weekend. The crops are ruined, and it will take months before farmers will be able to recover from this loss. Felipe Naikaso has more.
These farmers are selling what's left from their farms as floodwaters swept through, causing major damage.
Affected many things. Nearly half of my crops washed away because it was a heavy rain. But some things left over here we are selling. But I think after a few weeks there will be nothing left because of heavy rain. Everything will die.
Many of these farmers depend solely on their agricultural produce for income.
My popo farm all finished, all gone, and okra and the eggplant, everything is chili, everything is gone. Flood came, everything is destroyed, nothing left.
It has been one of the worst hit flood for these bar market vendors who continue to count their losses.
My table and items which were destroyed costed around $200. This was a really bad flood.
Meanwhile, the Nosori market vendors today donated food, clothes, water, planting seeds and other essential items to farmers and market vendors in Ba.
Just because we are all market in Fiji, but we are really family, and we are all association. That's why we think of Ba. That's why we come here today. Think of our family, our friends in Ba.
We are very grateful to our counterparts from Nosori for the big effort and the big help they have done to the Ba market vendors.
For many places in Ba, this is what families are continuing to do, which could take a few more days.
Cleanup is going on, and I have to help some of my neighbors just came. So the foods, we need help from some people. Please come and help me. Very bad.
Power and water has also been restored in parts of Ba. Felipe Naikaso, FBC News.
We now cross live to our West journalist, Felipe Naikaso. Felipe, it's been 4 days after the flood. What's the situation like on the ground?
Yes, Jackie, food and water continue to be the main need for these families in these affected areas, around the flood-affected areas rather. Government officials have also been out about in these flood-affected areas, and they're delivering food rations to these families. I've also noticed that there's a lot of volunteers out in numbers, and they're delivering cooked food to these people that are currently affected. They're also taking with them water and also clothes. For people that I've spoken to in the parts of Ba, they continue to tell me that they're counting their losses, and one thing that they've noticed is their kids' items, their kids' school books, school bags and stationery have all been destroyed in this flood, and they're trying to see how they can get their kids back to school probably by next week. Cleaning up continues in major parts around Ba, in Lautoka and parts of Nandi, and it may take a few more days before they can get fully back into their feet or get fully operational. Jackie.
Thanks so much for that, Felipe. Meanwhile, Attorney General Aya Said Qayyum today visited flood-affected areas in the Western Division. Said Qayyum visited one of the most affected areas in Ba, which was Yala Levu. The Attorney General also visited the Ba market and met with farmers and market vendors. Vendors and farmers have asked the Attorney General if they could fix the blockage issue which causes flooding in Ba town. They also have asked if more rations could be distributed in their areas. Still to come, over 1,000 child abuse cases reported, and rape trial continues in high court. Stay with us.
Bula, kera mai singatoka, kera ndo talita kana varorong na Radio Fiji 1 and Domoy Viti.
Ayaw na rin siya. Kombinasyon ko lang ndo talita na Radio Fiji 1 kina Domoy Viti.
Kaya kuyazo sila tale, nagurara may nawamanyi, nandunga. Gitu talita gini ang gagawin na sa vale, nagundurong varorong na Radio Fiji 1 na Domoy Viti.
Na Radio Fiji 1 na Domoy Viti na bonga ni BNN.
An estimated 100,000 Fijians have been affected by the pervasive flooding in the Western Division as a result of Tropical Cyclone Josie. National Disaster Management Office Director Anare Lewaningila says the cost of damage report is expected to be finalized tomorrow. In the wake of the extensive flooding, evacuees peaked at 2,278 people spread across 40 evacuation centres. Maggie Boyle reports.
The true extent of the flooding in the Western Division is becoming more apparent.
80 to 100,000 people who have been directly affected by the event. They are currently classified as our primary area of concern, and the the primary population that has been affected is around 100,000.
With cleanup crews and emergency teams working around the clock to remove debris, more than 1,700 evacuees have been able to go home.
We have 10 evacuation centers currently activated with 513 evacuees. Majority of these 10 evacuation centers, 7 is within the Nandronga-Nabosa area. 3 evacuation centers is in Lautoka and Nandi area.
The assessed cost of damage is expected tomorrow.
I think the Ministry for Agriculture has completed this as of last night or sometimes this morning. They have started to work on the assessment, and we should be in a better position to confirm the preliminary figure by most probably tomorrow afternoon.
The NDMO director is advising the general public to regularly monitor the weather reports and be prepared with more rain forecast. Maggie Boyle, FBC News.
1,088 child abuse cases were reported to the Child Services Unit under the Child Welfare Decree last year. However, Unit Director Ella Tukutukulevu believes there are other cases which have not been reported. Ana Ravulo has more.
Child abuse is an ongoing issue, and the latest statistics show that majority of these cases are happening in the Southern Eastern Division.
244, Northwest, that's Batavu and Rakiraki, 143. Southwest is Lautoka, Nandi and Singantoka is 164. Southeast, 298. Nasinu, 117. And the Central Division, 122. So that brings us a total of 1,088 cases.
These cases were brought in by police officers, teachers, medical officers and other stakeholders. Save the Children Fiji Director Iris Lou Mackenzie says they have received various cases.
So in the recent few weeks, we've received a few reports of children who are not going to school that are actually selling food. So that we consider as child labor because they're not going to school, and also investigate what the issues there. Why are the children not in school?
Child abuse cases received by the unit are being investigated by the Social Welfare Department. Both stakeholders say the legislation in place shows that it is mandatory for people to report on child abuse. Ana Ravulo, FBC News.
A 35-year-old man charged with the rape of a 16-year-old girl in 2016 today claimed in the High Court that he was in a relationship with the victim, 17 years younger than him. The father of 3 girls charged with 1 count of rape testified that his wife knew about his relationship and disapproved of it. Pranita Prakash reports.
During the cross-examination, Rajneesh Prasad denied that after allegedly raping her, he told her that he doesn't need her anymore. Prasad maintained in court that on the night of September 13th in 2016, nothing happened between him and the young woman at Suva Point. He testified that nothing happened between them and the alleged rape victim was lying. He also said that upon reaching Suva Point on the day of the alleged incident, the complainant told him to leave. He said when he asked her what she would do alone at Suva Point as it was already dark, she said that it was none of his concern. Prasad's wife gave evidence today saying that earlier this week she heard the alleged rape victim telling her sisters outside the court that she does not want to go through all this as nothing had happened between the two. The case continues tomorrow. Pranita Prakash, FBC News.
The Reserve Bank of Fiji is suggesting the formulation of pension legislation, which gives the authority to the RBF to regulate and supervise the Fiji National Provident Fund. RBF Governor Arif Ali says this legislation will not change the daily functions of the superannuation fund, but only make it more credible. Rachel Nath reports.
Currently, the Reserve Bank of Fiji has the authority to supervise the FNPF through the superannuation decree. However, the RBF is proposing its own pension legislation.
We supervise or regulate or license the insurance company based on this legislation. We've got a banking act. We supervise all the banking institution or the institution based on this act. Currently, so FNPF was not on our ambit for a very long time.
Ali says if this legislation were to come into place, it would allow the RBF to monitor any superannuation scheme.
Down the line, if they are private pension companies that need to think, but private pension companies will not be compulsory. So the FNPF will still remain the compulsory pension institution. So that means we'll still have to pay our 8% and the employer pays 10%, still goes to FNPF.
Opposition MP Viliame Gavakar questioned whether the legislation would impact the role of the FNPF.
The concern is this. You join the workforce, okay? And you are given a choice, whether to put your pension, your provident fund into FNPF or a new pension scheme. That's what the concern is.
That's government's call and we can't make the decision. Our decision is to have a legislation where it gives us the powers to supervise.
Meanwhile, in the last Parliament sitting, Economy Minister A.R. Said Kiyum said there were no possibilities of a second superannuation fund. Rachel Narth, FBC News.
The Fiji Independent Commission Against Corruption only investigates and prosecutes corruption-related matters in the public sector. FICAC does not deal with debt collection or any other money-related matters, says spokesperson Nandini Vandana. Her comments come as they received 4 complaints of impersonation of FICAC officers from the Central and Western Divisions. Kelly Vadala reports.
Those who are impersonating FICAC officers are going against the law, and anyone caught doing so will be penalized.
Individuals are going around and they are demanding money or in the pretext of a FICAC officer or collecting debt, and also in some instances where we've had impersonators of FICAC officers calling individuals and telling them they would arrange for land leases and so forth.
Under the FICAC Act 2007, any person who falsely claims to be a FICAC officer shall be guilty of an offence and be liable on conviction to a fine of up to $20,000 and imprisonment for 1 year. Meanwhile, the Commission is working on corruption-related offences.
From January 2018 as of now, the Commission has taken to court a total of 6 cases which involved 9 accused persons. So the cases are currently in court.
FICAC Manager Corruption Prevention Kolora Navila says more anti-corruption awareness is needed, especially on the grassroots level.
While growing up, they are embedded, they are taught, they are stressed the importance of ethical values and honesty.
Meanwhile, the public are reminded to demand proof of identification from FICAC officers, as every officer is required to carry authentic FICAC identification cards at all times. Kelly Vathala, FBC News.
In sports later with Jamie, FRU to contract 40 players for Skipper Cup competition, but we now join Rachel with business.
Thanks, Jackie. Good evening, and coming up in business tonight. RBF grants new credit reporting agency license. And in growing Fiji, Sovasovo village no longer dependent on horse transportation. Stay with us.
Moala rara ranavika au tikongona taunu singatoka ando talitaka na vakaronga na Bull FM number 2 na serre
ya dora subuni kurna bili iborani batukara hambara binanga do talitaki na vakaronga na Bull FM number 2 na serre Bull
FM number 2 na serre.
In business tonight, the Reserve Bank of Fiji has granted a license to Credit Information Reporting Agency Limited to conduct business as a credit reporting agency. The company, which was established by local investors and is the first reporting agency to be licensed under the Fair Reporting of Credit Act 2016. Governor Arif Ali says credit reporting benefits both lenders and borrowers and in turn increases economic activity.
There's nobody is regulating, nobody is supervising. Under the bill, now anybody who offers this service needs to be approved and licensed by the Reserve Bank. Anybody that provides data to the credit bureau needs to be approved or registered to the Reserve Bank. So under the old system, there's no supervisor and there's no regulator. Under the current system, these are regulated and will be supervised by the Reserve Bank.
Permanent Secretary for Prime Minister's Office Yogesh Karan has applauded the efforts of contractors and school management for their contribution in the rebuilding of schools. Karan says the Category 5 tropical cyclone Winston had damaged the schools badly. He says building schools according to standards will prevent the repeat of what happened in 2016. He made the comments during the hardware company Vinod Patel's national draw on school renovation campaign and trade buys in Suva today.
The good thing is that around these times we're building schools and all public buildings to the standards that are determined by qualified engineers.
And we now join Sharon from HSC Bank with the latest from the money market.
Thank you. It was a good day for our importers billed in US dollars as the greenback lost some footing amid ongoing trade tensions. The biggest worry for investors is that an escalating trade war will derail the global economy that has reached a point where it's largely growing in unison. Meanwhile, after surging yesterday, in today's trading, the Australian dollar is showing strength, lifted by better than expected domestic retail sales data. Later tonight, we expect important announcements from the US of their trade balance and jobless claims. So let's hope it brings about positive movement to the currency basket to which our Fiji dollar is pegged. And that's all from me, Vinaka.
Thanks, Sharon. Looking at today's currency exchange rate set this morning for the Fijian dollar. The Fiji dollar remained on the rise against most of the currencies we cover. However, once again, it lost ground against our major trading partners, Australia and New Zealand. Taking a look at the commodities market, oil prices rose slightly to close at $63.57 per barrel. Gold dropped as well to close at $1,331 an ounce, and silver followed suit, closing at $16.29 an ounce. And in growing Fiji tonight, farmers in Sovosovo village in the interior of Rakiraki will no longer have to use horses to transport their produce to the markets. The people depend on Dalo and Yangona farming, and the poor road conditions have been affecting them for a long time. But now the Fulton Hogan Highways has upgraded the Sovosovo Road, which runs off Budalevu Road along Kings Road to the village. This upgraded road will benefit over 100 residents. And that's it from Business this evening. Join Jamie with the latest in sports.
Thanks, Rachel, and good evening in sports tonight. Fiji Pearls lose the first match at Commonwealth Games. And weather conditions put ultramarathon runners to the test. This and more coming up.
मैं प्रेमिला वायरुकू रेकी रेकी से सुबह मेरी आँख खुलती है तो मैं मिर्ची एफएम सुनती हूँ। मिर्ची एफएम इज नंबर 1। इट्स सो हॉट।
हम लोग बार टाउन के कैरियर ड्राइवर लोगों ने हम लोग के मिर्ची एफएम सुनो अच्छा लगे। मिर्ची एफएम इज हॉट।
हाय, मैं संध्या नारिया रेफरी से मेरे सारे दोस्त मिर्ची एफएम सुनते हैं। मिर्ची एफएम इज हॉट। आई लव मिर्ची एफएम।
हमें स्पिन टोटो ताबुआ के मिर्ची एफएम में सबसे अच्छा गाना बजे।
मिर्ची एफएम इट्स हॉट।
The Fiji netball side suffered a 88-30 loss to Jamaica in its opening match at the Commonwealth Games this afternoon. Fiji was outclassed by the Jamaicans in almost all aspects of the game. However, shooter Maliana Rusibakula grabbed some consolation, making 17 goals from 19 attempts. Meanwhile, Jamaican goal shooter Janiela Fowler-Reid was too much to handle for the Fijians, netting 40 goals in the match. Meanwhile, in squash, Fiji lost both its men's singles matches. Stephen Henry lost to Uganda's Ian Rukunya 3-0, while Sailesh Pala lost to Joel Mackin of Wales 3-0. Fiji weightlifter Manueli Tulo missed out on a medal finish in the men's 56-kilogram division at the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games today. Tulo lifted a total of 104 kilograms in the snatch and 135 kg in the clean and jerk and finished fourth in the competition. Muhammad Hazalwaf of Malaysia, who went in as favourite, scooped the gold. India walked away with silver and Sri Lanka won bronze. 21-year-old Fijian boxer Chonen Ndavule lost to Luis Ricano Collin of Mauritius in the men's 64-kilogram category. Ndavule took some big hits in the first and second round, but stood his ground with some counter jabs. Ndavule came back firing in the third round, but his efforts were not enough, with his opponent winning on unanimous points decision from the judges. Fiji's journey to the 2018 Commonwealth Games began last night with the opening ceremony. Star weightlifter Polenia Vaivai led the Fijian contingent, which included all but the men's sevens team. Meli Tavanga reports.
Melbourne for various reasons, and of course we know what a proud and strong rugby nation they are.
Tagged as the Rugby Nation, Fiji's athletes and officials graced the Kerala Stadium, led by weightlifter and medal prospect Apollonia Vaivai. The Mbula smiles, which are famous around the globe, oozed from the faces of the Fijians dressed in sky blue.
Always a popular spot amongst Australian people. So many visit the beautiful island of Fiji, the islands of Fiji. Apollonia Vaivai, who won bronze in the 75-kilo class in Glasgow in weightlifting.
Well-known Australian singers performed on stage to entertain the crowd in the build-up the opening of the Commonwealth Games. At the ceremony, Prince Charles delivered a speech composed by Queen Elizabeth II as he declared the 21st Games open.
My wife and I could not be more delighted to be able to join all of you here on the Gold Coast this evening, and the many millions of you who are watching from your homes across the Commonwealth. I've been asked by the Queen to represent Her Majesty and to convey the following message to you all. The ancient stories told by the indigenous people of Australia remind us that even though we may be half a world away, we are all connected.
A total of 132 Fijian athletes will compete only in 12 sports and will be among more than 4,000 athletes from 70 countries who will be competing for 275 gold medals over the 11 days of competition. Melita Vanga, FBC Sports.
8 top provincial teams will battle it out in the much-anticipated Skipper Cup competition, which was launched earlier today at Suva's Grand Pacific Hotel, with round 1 of games to be played next weekend. Luciana Tangedakimbau speaks with a few captains about their expectations heading into the new season.
With a week out from the start of the Skipper Cup competition, Namosi captain Veramundi Kintikilati says his team is wary of other teams and they are fully prepared.
So the team are really working hard. We expect Netashir to be a tough game next week, and also our expectation we need to win the first round because only the top 4 will be going up to the qualify for the semi-final.
Suva's Isireli Lendua says his side is confident of producing good result when they take on Malolo next Saturday.
A mixture of young and old players. I can say not very old players, but players who have been playing for the past 4 or 5 years. And the new players are the one that has been coming from the under-20s for Suva last year.
Finishing 6th in the competition last year, Malolo team says the ultimate goal is to feature in the semi-final.
We'll come at the top 4. Like last year, we were in the 6th position, and this year we need to come at the top 4 so we can qualify at the semi-final.
Meanwhile, the round 1 of the Skipper Cup competition will kick-start next Saturday with Namosi taking on Naitasiri, Malolo playing against Suva. Rawa will battle Navosa, while Nandi will take on Nandronga. Luciana Tengedakimbau, FBC Sports.
Meanwhile, the Fiji Rugby Union has confirmed that all players, coaches and officials from each provincial team will be contracted to their different unions for the Skipper Cup competition. FRU Development Officer Saleh Sorovaki says this is important for the welfare of local players. Sorovaki adds this was possible through the increase in sponsorship. Meanwhile, the winner of the Skipper Cup competition will take home $30,000, while the runner-up will receive $15,000.
We'll have another workshop next week to try and really get to the details of the contracts that will be on offer. Flying Fijians players will have a different rate from the Warriors and the Drua, but that will be in the workshop next week as well.
The 49 athletes participating in the Lost Island Ultra Marathon are having a tough time adapting to the weather conditions in the interior of the mainland. Running 35 kilometers in less than 6 hours, the runners have covered some rugged treks but are yet to face more challenging terrain in the next few days. Despite winning the first two stages of the race, Danish athlete Simon Grimstrup says the race is one of the toughest he's ever encountered.
It was much hotter than I expected and more muddy, but it was a beautiful course, but it was brutal in the sun.
It's not very often you see Oklahoma City Thunder center Steven Adams get pushed around, but the tall New Zealander may have thought he was playing rugby for the All Blacks when he got shoved to the ground in the 111-107 loss to the Warriors. That's it from Sports Tonight. Join Angie later on with weather. And in the world of the weird and the wonderful, watch how a train dangerously runs through a Thailand market on a daily basis. That's coming up.
Bula, kera mai singatoka, kera ndo talita kana varorong na Radio Fiji 1 and Domoy Viti.
Ayaw na rin siya. Kombinasyon ko lang ndo talita kana Radio Fiji 1 kina Domoy Viti.
Kaya kuyaga silil tale, nagurara may nawamanyi, nandunga. Gitu talita gini ang gitu pinasibale, nagudurong varorong na Radio Fiji 1 na Domoy Viti.
Na Radio Fiji 1 na Domoy Viti na bonga ni BNN.
In new media tonight, new hexacore processors and discrete graphics highlight updates to Dell's 15.6-inch laptops and refreshed all-in-ones. And now for a quick weather update, we join Angie.
Hello there and welcome to the Weather World. The conditions were quite different today, quite gloomy for some places, while the northern side rather had extreme rain which caused flooding. This is due to a low pressure system which is slow moving over Fiji. Taking a look in the west for today, quite sunny with rain clouds forming. There's prediction of showers later tonight. Eastwards from Peck Harbour to Suva, much of a gloomy day with rain also indicated for tonight. And up north, heavy showers which resorted to flooding in low-lying areas. Please keep safe. At sea, winds gusting up to 45 knots with very rough seas. For the tides, high tide will be at 10:35 p.m. with low tide at 4:32 a.m. Sunrise will be at 6:14. For tomorrow, it's not looking good at all as there is showers in the forecast. Please ensure to take precaution measures. Tomorrow's temps, majority centers will be in the lower 30s. And looking further on to Saturday, heavy rain with strong winds and possible flooding to be the case, so keep safe. And that's all from the FBC Weather World. Jackie.
Thanks so much for that, Angie. In Fijian Pulse tonight, we are asking, should school students who vandalize buses be penalized?
From my point of view, I think students should be penalized and not the school. Because that's after hours.
I think it's pretty sad to hear of incidents of students vandalizing our buses, especially during the zones. And I think the students, they need to be warned first that before they even get on the bus, that if they do any damages, that they will have to pay for what the damages are and the costs and all that.
I think, yes, they should be penalized because they're wasting the government's grant. Actually, the government is giving a lot of money for us students to actually go to school and for other necessary things that should be done by school, and it's a waste if they do that, and I think they should punish the students for what they have done.
In the world of the weird and the wonderful, we take a look at one of Bangkok's largest produce and seafood markets and why it's become even more popular. Recapping the main stories, floodwaters force major disturbance in Lambasa, disturbance to intensify further, and cleanup continues in the Western Division. For these stories and others, you can tune in daily to our sister radio station Gold FM. To our poll question this week, we are asking, can the Fiji Sevens team win the Hong Kong title 4 times in a row? Visit our FBC website to answer. Before we go, our shot of the day is from the residents of Lambasa. Remember, you can send us newsworthy pictures News and fbc.com.au, or share it with us via the Facebook page FBC News. You can also follow and tweet us your news tips at FBC_news or simply #FNews. That was your FBC News for tonight. From the team and I, stay safe. Good night.
Wrong on the Radio Fiji 1 and Domoy Viti.
Ayaw na rin siya. Kombinasyon mo sekolah untuk tali tak na Radio Fiji 1 kena domili.
Yang kuya do silil tale. Nagurara may naomanyi nandunga. Gitu tale tajiri yang gitu Venezuela pun nangguntur rongo. Barrongo na Radio Fiji 1 nandumay biti.
Na Radio Fiji 1 nandumay biti na bonga ni BNN.